The new Atari 2600 Plus is going to be under many Christmas trees this year, but since it plays physical cartridges, if you don't also wrap up some great games, it'll be about as much fun as a lump of coal. But how do you know which games are worth your money? Well, a few days ago, we looked at the top 10 Atari 2600 games you can score for under $5 each. So in this video, I'm upping the budget. We've done the research and we'll run down the top 10 cartridges the Atari VCS library has to offer, all for $10 or less, right after this. This video supported in part by...
Playing VR, I tend to sweat. It gives me an edge. So King of Nerds happens to give me an edge too. Let King of Nerds give you the edge. Bye, King of Nerds.
Hey there, welcome back to GenXGrownUp. I'm John and I am a GenXGrownUp. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. In the comment section of my top 5 under $5 video, the overwhelming request was to take a look at another 10 games in the next price bracket. More than $5, but under 10. And so, here we are. For reference, here's what we've done. We started with that long-running Atari Age forum thread where members have been voting on their favorite VCS cartridges for years now. And then we cross-referenced that with the current loose cartridge value of all those games over on pricecharting.com. Links to all of those sources are down in the video description. Then, once again, we took all of that raw data and plugged it into a spreadsheet, cross-referenced the info, and started crunching the numbers. Once the CPU finally returned to a safe temperature, the computer spit out the following list of 10 Atari 2600 carts that you can pick up as of the time of producing this video for between $5 and $10. With that, let's get started with number 10, Activision's Enduro. Enduro is an Atari fan favorite racing game for good reason. You have the winding road ahead disappearing into the horizon, the surprising sense of speed, varied road conditions based on the weather and time of day. My favorite will always be nighttime when all you can see of the other cars are their taillights. You're on a cross-country road race and there are no lives or chances, only the marathon challenge of passing the required number of cars before daybreak. Bumping into a car won't crash you, but it will slow you way down and push you toward the shoulder, costing precious time. If you're a racing game enthusiast, this is right up there with the best Atari has to offer, and it'll only set you back $6.80. Up next is Parker Brothers' port of the arcade game, Frogger. If you enjoyed the legendary arcade game, then this version, while graphically simpler, retains the key mechanics of the game. Your little frogs want to go home, but to get there, they must first cross a busy highway, and then survive on logs and the backs of turtles and gators to get there. And don't forget to pick up those lady frogs on your way for bonus points, and I always imagined the promise of some little tadpoles in the future. If you want to get hoppin', a loose copy of Frogger only goes for about $7.49. Up next, Keystone Capers. Something about Keystone Capers always appealed to me. Maybe it's the character design or the animation, the sound design, or most likely a combination of all that stuff. You play the role of a mall cop who's hot on the trail of a thief trying to escape to the roof of the store. As you chase the crook, you must dodge bouncing beach balls, runaway shopping carts, model biplanes, and blaring radios, all while picking up dropped treasure and ultimately catching the ne'er-do-well before he escapes. The more time left on the clock, the higher your score, and then the game repeats with gradual increases in difficulty. Keystone Capers is a charming game, and speaking of criminality, this one's a steal at just $8.43. Our number 7 pick came along very late in the life of the Atari 2600, post-crash, in fact, and it's Solaris. There's a lot to unpack in Solaris. It was initially in development as a game called Universe in the early 80s, but was then renamed to The Last Starfighter when Atari got a license to do a game based on the film. However, it got shelved and wasn't released until '86 when it got the name Solaris, and was reframed as a sort of sequel to Star Raiders. Or at least it's in the same universe, as the Xylons are again the bad guys you're battling against. Solaris, or is it Solaris? Either way, is a 16K cartridge, 4 times the size of most games of the time, and you can see that extra space on screen. A wide variety of enemies, various star maps and sectors, space battles that are intermixed with planet-side missions, bases to rescue, and an overarching quest to find the lost planet of Solaris and rescue the lost Atarian Federation pioneers who are stranded there. The TLDR here is that Solaris is a massive game for the time and pays off with tons of space shooting and variation, and you can snag a copy for just $9. Up next at number 6, it's Ms. Pac-Man. Now, say what you will about Atari's Pac-Man port, and people do have a lot to say about it. This release of Ms. Pac-Man was better in pretty much every way. Less flickering, more fluid movement, more accurate color schemes, and most importantly, an amped sense of speed and excitement over Mr. Pac-Man across the board. This port preserves all the things that made this Ms. great, including varied map layouts and a track screen, and bonus fruit that roams the maze. You shouldn't walk, but sprint out that side door shortcut to pick up your copy of Ms. Pac-Man for only about $6.10. And up next at number 5, it's Atari's Asteroids. I'll start by saying that Asteroids is a must-have for any 2600 collection. Like Space Invaders, Asteroids brought the arcade game home in a way that few other ports were able to pull off. And also like Space Invaders, the Atari version is substantially different, but in ways that make it new and fresh rather than a pale imitation. Of course, you'll be thrusting around the sector, blasting big rocks into tiny rocks and tiny rocks into dust, but you'll also be on the lookout for those devious UFOs who are out to ruin your good time. Plus, Asteroids boasts a number of extra features like shields instead of hyperspace, something that didn't hit the arcade until Asteroids Deluxe, and a cool flip power that can come in handy in those later levels. I'm actually stunned this one wasn't included on the 2600 Plus's multi-cart, but the good news is you can correct that oversight for about $8.27. We're halfway to number 1. Have you spotted anything so far that's going to be on your shopping list? Oh, and while you're saving money on cool stuff, allow me to refer you to GenXGrownUp.com/merch. Over at our merch store, you can get stickers, hoodies, and graphic tees with not just Gen X Grown Up logos and designs, but with creative designs for whatever you may be into. Is it Atari, or arcade games, or Star Trek, or Knight Rider? Look, we've got it all. And if you're watching this during the holidays, we're running a sale on everything, and every dollar you spend goes to support independent content creation, just like this video. Okay, now next up should be our number 4 pick, but it's a title that's already included with your 2600 on that multi-cart, and it's Yars Revenge. Do you really need a description of Yars Revenge? This is the legendary masterpiece by none other than Howard Scott Warshaw, which began development as a port of Star Castle, but evolved, much like the Yar itself, into something much more. In Yars, you control a Yarian warrior in the endless struggle to destroy the evil Kotile. It hides behind a shield that you can either shoot or nibble away, then charge the Zorlon cannon and take your shot. There's a devious little bullet constantly chasing you, and a neutral zone offers a bit of rest, but not when the Kotile turns itself into a swirl and hurls itself toward your little Yar. If you have the 2600 Plus, you already own this one, but if you'd like to grab a standalone copy for your collection, and who wouldn't, it only runs about $5.49. So what's the actual number 4 pick? Well, it's another game that I'm frankly stunned did not make it on one of those multi-carts for the launch, but over on the paddle bundle front, and it's Warlords. The beauty of Warlords is in the multiplayer aspect. I mean, there's a story. Each player is one of 4 quadruplet sons born to King Frederick, who were banished and each became a warlord of a forbidden land. The game picks up as the 4 brothers are battling for dominance of the land and, I guess in kind of like a Highlander way, to be the last one standing. Back here in the real world, Warlords is a multiplayer mashup of Pong and Breakout where you must protect your kingdom from the fireballs being flung around by your opponents. Grab a second set of paddles and 3 friends for a truly good time that may or may not lend itself to a drinking game, and all this can be yours for just $5.71. Up next at number 3, it's River Raid. Fly your fighter jet up the river of no return. Yeah, that's what it's called. Again, the cool things you learn reading the manual. Fly your jet up the river, blasting bridges and shooting boats, jets, and choppers that get in your way. You've got to closely manage your fuel though, so flying over fuel tanks will replenish your gauge a bit, but be careful because you can also destroy those tanks. A real pro does both. Get some fuel and then destroy the tank for points before you move on. Did you know Carol Shaw was inspired to make a game like Scramble for the VCS, which led to River Raid's creation? Well, whatever her motivation, I'm glad she did, because River Raid is a favorite for many people, and a loose cart only runs about $9.14. Now, before we get to the top 2, we have one more multi-cart conundrum. This would have been my number 2 pick, except it's already on that 10-in-1 multi-cart, and it's Warren Robinette's Adventure. An evil magician has stolen the enchanted chalice, and it's your job, young knight, to return it to the Golden Castle. 3 dragons, Yorgel, Grundle, and Rendel, will do their best to stop you as you traverse the multi-screen kingdom through darkened catacombs and mysterious mazes. There are keys to castles, magical objects, and an arrow that, if you squint, is actually a dragon-slaying sword. Oh, and then there's that bat that I can't stand that takes my stuff all the time. Oh, I can't stand that bat. Adventure would be in my top 10 games too, and if you would like a standalone cart, the good news is it only costs about $9.33. The actual number 2 pick then is Kaboom. Despite its drop-dead simplicity, Kaboom ranks right up there as one of the most popular games ever to hit the 2600. And talk about simple! Atop the wall is the Mad Bomber, who sends wave after wave of Looney Tunes-type bombs with little fuses on them, hurling down toward you. Using your Atari paddle, your goal is to catch every bomb with your bucket, thus snuffing the fuse, before it reaches the ground. And losing a bucket not only reduces your number of chances, but also ups the difficulty by reducing the number of buckets you have on screen. Everyone knows the thrill of Kaboom, but not everyone knows that game number 2 lets the second player control the Mad Bomber. That ought to start some fights. This gem deserves to be in your Plus collection, and it's only about $7.61. So what is the number 1 pick then? Well, you may have already noticed the proliferation of Activision titles on this top 10 list, and that's no accident. They put out some quality stuff. So number 1 on our list was also the number 1 selling Activision cartridge, moving over 4 million units, and it's Pitfall. You play the role of Pitfall Harry, adventuring deep in the Forbidden Jungle, seeking lost treasures while avoiding all manner of deadly perils. Hop across crocodiles, leap over logs, avoid scorpions, swing from vines, and that's just for starters. Pitfall was a landmark game on the 2600, and for many, it was their favorite. The technical achievement for the day was hard to overstate. We were used to controlling inanimate boxes, and here comes Pitfall with a fully realized human character traveling through a surprisingly detailed jungle with charming sound design and addictively simple gameplay. If you haven't played Pitfall, you should. And if you have played Pitfall, then you already know why it belongs in your Atari game collection. And luckily, it squeaks right in under the wire, going for just $9.99 for a loose cartridge. When it's all said and done, you could acquire all 12 games we've talked about here for under $100. That's a lot of fun for not too much cash. Now, as usual, I will keep an eye on the comments section for your feedback. If you have suggestions for other lists like this that you'd find entertaining and or informative, let me know. That's literally how this video came to be. For now, I'm going to place links over my shoulders here and here to some other 2600 plus and related videos I've done recently. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy in this video, and I cannot wait to talk to you again next time. Bye-bye.